come to today's reading of Exodus chapters 14 to 16. Obviously, as I keep saying, you are supposed to be reading the chapters, or listening to them at least yourselves. It is not me teaching, but you're learning. I'm merely highlighting verses that you may overlook or not consider in the context of other verses in the Bible that makes a point, between them makes a point, on which you can form your beliefs and your actions. Remember, the purpose of us going through the Bible from Genesis to Revelations on a daily basis is to separate traditional inherited theology from the Word of God and follow the latter. Okay, Exodus chapter 14, verse 2. Yahweh God speaking to Moses, saying, "Speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pith-Hiroth, between Migdal and the sea, over against Baal-Zephon. Before it shall ye encamp by the sea." Now Baal-Zephon, Baal is one part of the word, and Zephon the second part. Baal equals Lord or false god, and Zephon is the name of the god. We will later see things like Baal-Purah in Numbers and so forth. So Baal, it means Lord, and it's why the Catholic Church, or those early people those who took over the early church, took out the name of God and replaced it with Lord, because then you can just substitute your own Lord into the title, and without pronouncing the name of God, Jehovah or Yahweh. So this place was called after a false god. Exodus 14:18. "And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh and upon his chariots and upon his horsemen." And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. Now God took them this way through the sea, because Egypt has garrisons, little sub-army camps, obviously on different borders of it, protecting it. They didn't have any protection of soldiers at the sea, because we were expecting them to come and attack from the sea. So God earlier said he had taken them via land, to come across these garrisons, and their hearts would have faded because they think they're going to have to fight and with war with the Egyptians. But their hearts seemed to have faded just as much when it came to the sea. But God did his miracle, and you see the effect of that miracle in the belief system. Remember, God is the I am. He can take any form and yet remain God. Whether wind, a cloud, a dove, a fire, or even a human, as we shall later see as we saw with Abraham. It was Genesis chapters 18 and 19. The sound has gone up down on the previous recording. It's saying that God took them this long way, because if he took them through the way of the Philistines, they would have had to fight, and they're not yet trained to fight. It's coming out of Egypt, being servants and so forth. So he took them this long way. He's going to make them into an army, and by the time they reach the promised land, they will be an army ready for trained for fighting. So their hearts don't get too weak and don't want to follow him. Okay, Exodus chapters 14:28. "And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them, and they remained not so much as one of them." Now, in about 2010, I heard of an underwater exploration had detected older chariots on the riverbed, and computer images were published showing these old ancient chariots on the riverbed there. I suppose that's proof of this difficulty then. Exodus chapter 14, verse 31. "And Israel saw the great work which Yahweh did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared Yahweh and believed Yahweh and his servant Moses." Now this is one of the testimonies of redemption that brought about the belief. See, the purpose of the New Testament miracles, or for example Acts chapter 2, is 3,000 believed. Still heard them speaking in all different languages. go by faith in the testimonies of the Bible, not the claimed gifts of miracle workers today. So that concludes chapter 14 notes. On to chapter 15, starting with verse 1. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto Yahweh, and spake, saying, I will sing unto Yahweh, for he hath triumphed gloriously. And then these are some of the words of the sentiments of the song. The horse and his rider have he thrown into the sea. Yahweh is my strength and my song, and he is become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him an habitation. My father's God, and I will exalt him. 15 verse 3. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Verse 16. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over. O Yahweh, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased. So God redeemed his people out of the bondage of Egypt, and likewise in the New Testament out of the bondage of the world. This time the blood stroke sacrifice of his Son, so that we no longer serve sin, but serve him. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 20. For you are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. You are bought with a price. Be not you the servants of men. Brethren, let every man wherein he is called therein abide with God. So we are supposed to not serve him but serve God, which is why he took them out of Egypt, not serve the Egyptians, but to serve him. On verse 20. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all of the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. Now this should not be, as some people use it for, as a precedent to sing and dance in church, nor David's returning with the ark in 2 Samuel chapter 6 verse 14. Neither of these events happened in a church or equivalent environment, but on the street. Later in Exodus chapter 32 verses 18 to 21, when Moses went up to the mount and he came down and found them dancing and making idols, we shall see Miriam was just doing what she learnt as worship in Egypt. Even Aaron said, this is the gods, when he made all the idols, this is the God that brought you out of Egypt, and clearly it wasn't. You would never see dancing instructed by God, nor ever done in his congregations. Such things affect the emotions of the participants and can prepare their minds to accept false preachings, even becoming possessed and slain in the spirit, as it is called by some of those participants of such practices. Okay, 15:26. God speaking again, and said, if thou wilt diligently, note the if, hearken to the voice of Yahweh thy God, and will do that which is right, in whose sight? In his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and not just believe, but keep all his statutes, then, he says, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am Yahweh that healeth thee. So a few conditions are in that one sentence. It is if you do these things, and the things you have to do, it has to be the right things, it has to be in his sight, but not by your understanding, and it has to be his commandments to be kept. And once you fulfill all those criteria, then comes the I will part of God. And really it's the same with any contract that we make today. If you break one part of the terms of the contract, you've broken the contract. And the person who was supposed to do something is no longer obliged to do it. So note, God always put all in his sentence. He doesn't leave it to any ambiguity. He puts the word all. So as we should have read from the readings thus far, Yahweh God's blessings and healings are always conditional on keeping his commandments, not unconditional as taught today. So, if you want healing, it is not purchased by monetary payment to a pastor, as many claim, but by your keeping of his commandments. Those are his words. The pastor will say you got to pay a donation or buy or anything like that, monetary. No, God doesn't ask for your money. Healing by other spiritual means is not of him. Remember, Egypt's magicians also had a source of power. Okay, last one, chapter 16, verse 1. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month, so now 1.5 months later, after their departing out of the land of Egypt. Verse 4. Then said Yahweh unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Verse 6, part of it. Then ye shall know that Yahweh hath brought you out from the land of Egypt. As I said, they were now 6 weeks into the journey approximately. Their action would prove if they had a correct heart to keep God's commandments, i.e. walk in his law, which must have been relayed to them, or it would not be in verse 23. The 6th day is a particular day, not a 6th. It says the 6th day, so we cannot change our calendars around. And remember, in Genesis 1, the days were set by the sun and the moon, and the 6th one, or the 7th one, was between the 6th period of the sun and the moon made their markings in the heaven. So we cannot change the pattern of the sequence. So we cannot change the pattern of when God says we are to keep his days of worship or come to him. So just so you understand, the 7th day is marked by the planets, the sun and the moon in heaven, not by our calendars. And God, in verse 6, God says, Then you shall know. This denotes a sign of God that you serve him. For example, in Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 12, it says, Moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, and that might know that I am Yahweh, that sanctify them. See also Exodus chapter 31, verse 13, and Ezekiel 20:20, we should come on to. Exodus chapter 16, verses 23 to 29. Just a couple of comments on those. And he said unto them, This is that which Yahweh hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Verse 26. 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be done. There shall be none, no bread food there. Verse 27. And it shall come to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day for to gather, and they found none. And Yahweh said unto Moses, How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? And Exodus 29, so in verse 29, See, for that Yahweh had given you the Sabbath. Now this is before we come to Exodus chapter 20, where they're given what people call the Ten Commandments. So the first commandment they were given to do was a Passover in Exodus chapter 12. The second one here they're given is to keep in the Sabbath, the 7th day Sabbath. These two come way before chapter 20, which has all the other instructions, or not all of but the next set of instructions here they are given. Now, again, some people think Sabbath means rest. It does not mean rest. That's just what the translators have put it in the Bible. Just because they rested on the Sabbath, it doesn't mean Sabbath means rest. Sabbath is a period, is a name into a period of time for the seventh day. In Genesis chapters 1, we saw the first period of time was called day 1. Second period of time, day 2, and so forth. When we came to the seventh period of time, it was given a name. So all the other days are numbers 1 to 6. Number 7 is given the name, the Sabbath. That is what the word Sabbath means. It is not a word for rest. So we can rest and play football, we can rest and sleep, we can do rest and do anything. So Sabbath is not a day, is not interchangeable with the word rest. Later we shall see in detail we are resting from our common daily work for the purpose of having a holy convocation with Yahweh or your creator. I think, as I said in one lesson before, you can tell what God and someone is serving by what days they keep as holy. Because each God has a chosen as their holy days. So, obviously, the seventh day is not the same as the first day. The seventh day is the one before the birth. If we accept Messiah rose on the first day of the week, in the New Testament, which some call Sunday, then the seventh is obviously the Saturday. Biblically speaking, however, since we read in Genesis the evening and the morning make up the day actually starts biblically at sunset. Last verse 33. And Moses said unto Aaron, take a pot and put an over full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord Yahweh, to be kept for your generation. And so normally this manna did not last until the next day. But in this case it was last for a while, because to be a memorial for people in the future. Shalom. Hopefully we speak again tomorrow. Apologies for the lowness of sound. I hope you are able to either turn the volume up or read the article. Shalom until tomorrow, God willing.